cost you too much money. We have some good options. You mentioned Kipnis, Brantley. I know he's one of your favorite. So I think that's a really nice game to target right there. However, Peavy isn't one of those pitchers where you automatic stack. He's not an auto stack against like someone tonight like Chase Anderson.
Before we move on to our pitching breakdown, we'll go through the top tier, the middle tier, and of course the punts. We've touched on.
What's up, everybody?
It really
is Tuesday.
It's time for
You Got Burned. The 3rd, big Tuesday tonight.
You just got burned.
Joining me on the show is Drew
Dave,
Dinkmeyer from RotoExperts.com. They do the daily fantasy rundown there. And Derek Carty from FantasyInsiders.com. Davis is having all sorts of internet troubles right now.
It pains me to think about last night.
He got stuck like with his face like this right here, and as funny as it's going to be,
but
just was not working. So he is quote unquote restarting his internet. So hopefully he'll be joining us in a second.
The other ones
Drew and
St.
Derek,
Louis players
guys,
so
how are you?
Be enough.
I think you need to turn the podcast off.
Yeah,
there's something going
very
on.
Much
You need to
struggle. Matt Holliday was simply mediocre. Yadier Molina, I didn't have him, but I know he burned a lot of people. And
that's what Chad is saying.
It's a perfect segue into where you were going with this as well.
I'm going to kind of reverse it, not talk about the players who didn't perform for me, but Danny Duffy. You burned me, man. You burned me.
Oh, yeah.
I stacked against you because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a mediocre pitcher.
Yes. Okay,
the Cardinals did not come through for me. Alan Craig, Matt Holliday, and Matt Carpenter all gave me. I mean, Holliday gave me, I think, 2.5 on FanDuel, maybe 2.75, which is reasonable if the rest of your offense and pitcher, Alex Cobb, get things going. But it was just an off night for me across the board in my cash games and in my GPPs. So as I said,
do we have a podcast playing right now?
The fact, the beauty, the lore of daily fantasy is
it's
now
somewhere.
I can go back
I just don't know where it is.
up a brand new lineup today.
I got it. Okay. Done. Sorry about that. So the podcast was still playing while I was introing people. And I'm embarrassed. Drew, you're embarrassed too. I can see from your face. You got a little sunburned. Can you tell us how the sunburn happened?
Day drinking outside in Brooklyn. It's kind of how it happened.
Oh, well, I'm just reading the chat. So, anyways, yeah, for those that may have missed it earlier while there's a lot of voices going on, basically, Davis is restarting his internet. He should be on it any second. I do want to talk about last night's kind of gross slate, but on DraftKings, you had 3 people that tied for first place. So they each got like 53,000. For those that were up at 1 a.m. Central Time, STL Cardinals had like a huge comeback there at the end. So he was like 20 points down, and all of a sudden, this was like in the 8th after the Pirates started hitting, and he had 2 chances to win 100,000, and he didn't get a hit either of those chances, so he got stuck with only 10,000. But we talked about how many entries he had yesterday. I think he still was able to break even, but it was not. I mean, you had like a 90,000 sweat for him, and you had 3 people that were going to lose $33,000 from it. So it was a pretty crazy time last night. And just not a lot of people were on to enjoy it, I guess. Anyways, we have a decent little slate tonight, 15 games. We have the Fantasy Elite draft that Davis is in. Hopefully we'll be doing. Yours truly won the draft last night. And then we have the 600,000 monster on FanDuel. So that's a pretty big tournament. So just keep on rolling with those tournaments. So we'll see what you guys have to say for tonight. I do want to tell people that the podcast you're listening to earlier, it will be hopefully out starting this Friday. Stratford and Laffey do a great job with it. And I really am looking forward to the pod and bringing some other people on with it as well. So with that being said, let's get on to today's slate. Davis, take it over.
All right, cool. Well, just so everyone knows, the Fantasy League game that's going to be on today's show, it's the late slate, the one with the Colorado game in it. So if you want to enter it, just go ahead and go down there and enter. And then let's just talk about weather real quick before we get started. I was sort of targeting Scott Kazmir a little bit just because I don't think much of the Yankees' offense and most of their really good hitters are left-handed. But it's looking that there's like a 65% chance of rain there right now. Is that changed at all, Drew?
No, it's the forecast that I saw had gotten kind of worse, at least into the evening. There's a window in the first hour, and then beyond that, it's 70% or more thunderstorms until after midnight. And the Yankees tend to postpone games pretty early, so I would not be surprised if we got word while we were on the air here that that game gets postponed. I'm totally avoiding it right now.
Okay, cool. Well, that's really the only game that bears conversation in terms of weather. I didn't see any other concerns. So let's get right down to starting pitching options. I think today's pretty interesting because there isn't one guy who just leaps out. There's no Kershaw, there's no Felix, and there's not exactly one guy who you would say you have to play. So I'll let Derek talk about whoever his number one option is first.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options tonight. I definitely don't think there's a clear-cut number one. My system actually has, varying guys as its number one based on the site, so it's really close. But I think Garrett Cole is a really good option tonight against San Diego in Petco. I think Dan Herron is a good option. I think Gallardo is a good option. I think Jaime Garcia is a good option. So those are the guys that I'm kind of looking at. Although in cash games, it's not like there's a Kershaw like there was last night.
Yeah. Are you on board with the number one Garrett Cole philosophy, Drew?
Yeah, I have Cole as our number one guy. I think if you just kind of combine skill, strength of opponent, pitching environment, and then price, he's the guy that most consistently I'm finding in good spots around the industry in terms of price. So I like him, and I even like him on FanDuel if you're playing for the win. Usually it's a little bit less exciting to play for the win with road pitchers, but San Diego's starting a rookie pitcher. Their bullpen's really taxed. And I think it's a decent spot for Cole.
Really taxed and super terrible. That awful Padres bullpen just about cost me my advance in the $25 Survivor last night. I was like, oh, I gotta have a 60-spot cushion. That game's in the 6th inning. I'm good. And then a Starling Marte RBI later. I'm almost out of it. That bullpen is super annoying. From what I've seen around the industry, though, I do think most people are on Cole. If for no other reason that he's been really good, everyone knows that name, and they know he's a high K pitcher, and, of course, the opponent, the Padres, are super terrible. But on multi-pitcher sites, it doesn't seem like there's really anyone that can be agreed on as the number two option, especially because prices are so different. If you look, on DraftKings, James Shields is a significant proportion more of the cap than he is on Draft Street, and so it really varies. So let's have a price agnostic conversation first. If we weren't involving price on any multi-pitcher site, who would be your number two option in terms of safety and upside combined behind Garrett Cole, Derek?
It's kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but I'd say Dan Herron. Although I could see probably 2 or 3 other guys really entering that conversation.
Yeah, I actually agree with Drew's analysis on that situation. If you read the Daily Fantasy Rundown at rotoexperts.com, in the Herron blurb that Drew wrote today, he talked about not agreeing with Vegas on the Dan Herron line, and I agreed with him, just mostly because he is such a fly ball pitcher. In the way he's set up today, he's going to have to get through a lot of power bats, and I just don't necessarily like him a whole lot in that situation, and I certainly don't think he's a minus 200 favorite.
What was your reasoning, Drew? Just the power bats and?
That's part of it. The other thing, for me, is Herron's. I was looking at his velocity charts on Fangraphs, and they're not a straight downward trend, and it did bounce back in his last start. So maybe that's kind of what Vegas is on. But I'm a little bit concerned about that. He's complained about the back issues a few starts ago. So I don't know. Vegas. He's the only guy facing an opponent that has a team run line of 3. So, saying he's a good option tonight, you've got a lot of company on your side with Vegas. And usually when I disagree strongly with Vegas, I'm usually made to look like a fool. I'm usually very red in the face. So,
The thing about Heron's ground balls too is they've like spiked up a lot this year, and it's not that surprising because you look at his repertoire and most of what he's throwing are ground ball pitches. Just for what
and
it's worth.
that would certainly help against that lineup in terms of limiting their best skill, which is the power. So I mean, I get it. He's pitching very, very well from a peripheral standpoint. I'm just worried the strikeouts have been down a bit of late. So like I had him ranked pretty low, but I mean it's all splitting hairs for me with basically options like 1 through like 8 for me are all pretty close. So I wouldn't argue it too strongly.
I think
That's kind of
fair.
how I am. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options. I wouldn't argue it too strongly either.
If I'm looking a little bit farther out of that situation, I think I would prefer to take Shields. And Drew and I were talking about this on G-Chat last night, but a lot of the reason that people have this perception that the Cardinals are this amazing offense is because they hit with black magic last year with runners in scoring position, basically. So I think that people think the Cardinals are a much stiffer opponent than they actually are. I believe they're 16th in weighted on-base average versus right-handed pitching thus far, and James Shields is clearly an above-average pitcher. So if I'm looking at a second pitcher, I think Shields is definitely my option tonight. Do you agree with that, Drew?
Whew.
I had C.J. Wilson as my number 2. But then if you like factor in price and stuff, then Shields for me was right behind CJ, so I could see the case for that. I have like Cole, CJ, Shields, and Zimmerman all in kind of a tier together for me. And then like my next tier is Jaime Garcia, Chris Archer, Heron, and Anibal Sanchez. And so like they're all pretty close, but yeah, I had Shields high, but I had CJ Wilson a little bit higher.
I think I would definitely take Shields over Wilson just because I have much more respect for the Astros than apparently everyone else does, but I think they hit left-handed pitching very well, and even if they don't do it with a high frequency, when they do make contact, the ball goes far.
But that's the thing, like that's what CJ Wilson's really good against. He's really good against preventing power because he keeps the ball on the ground a lot, and his weakness is lineups that grind. Like his weakness is he gets a little bit, fidgety around the strike zone, and teams wear him down, and he throws a lot of pitches. And that's not what the Astros do. They just hack.
Oh, they hack. They love to hack.
So, I mean, it is a shift downgrade in park environment, and the Astros do have some righties that hit with power. But I actually think, like, the way CJ pitches is one of the better matchups for a left-handed pitcher against Houston.
Okay, so let's go sites where his price is reasonable. FanDuel and DraftKings, yes. He's the most expensive pitcher on DraftKings. Yeah,
DraftKings, I think, I only looked at FanDuel, DraftKings, and DraftStreet so far, and on those, FanDuel was the only one that I thought he was in play. The other two, he was so much higher than all the others, and I don't have that big of a gap between the others.
Yeah, okay, cool, because that's what I was thinking, is that his price tag on DraftStreet and in particular was pretty prohibitive. Derek, is your video working, or is it just frozen on my end?
It seems okay for me. I don't know.
Frozen.
Can you guys see me?
I've got him frozen.
It's frozen. It's okay though. You're in a pretty comfortable position, so.
Yeah, you're lounging. Okay, so would you like to add in on that C.J. Wilson analysis? Are you more on my side of trying to avoid the Astros, or are you more on Drew's side and thinking that it's a good spot for Wilson?
I think I agree with Drew's analysis. I'm not really on Shields or Wilson a whole lot tonight, but I agree with Drew's analysis that Wilson is in as good a spot as you can hope for a lefty against Houston. But still, I don't think he's a guy I'm targeting. Same thing, I don't think Shields is a guy I'm targeting. I do think St. Louis's offense is good. I think the park is a downgrade. I mean, going to the NL and having Jaime Garcia as a batter helps him, but I still think the offense is good enough where he's not really on my radar, at least in terms of, I don't know, I feel like there's better options.
Yeah, okay, cool. Something we need to talk about, and I'm actually interested in both of your guys' take about this guy anyways, even outside of today's context, but Colin McHugh versus the Angels, he's basically had I think 2 months, maybe a month and a half of really good starts. He's had 2 bad starts, one of which was just bad because I think he walked 6 guys, something like that. So, and God, he just doesn't seem like he would be good at all. But the peripherals are not terrible. He has not been as bad as basically everyone thought he was going to be when he is called up. What is your opinion on McHugh, Derek?
I haven't had a chance to look at McHugh yet, but I know there was an article from Jeff Sullivan at Fangraphs about a week or two ago looking at McHugh and some of the things that he's kind of, I guess, changed this year, and he was kind of buying into McHugh a little bit. He kind of changed the way he was standing on the rubber. His velocity was up. There were a couple other things I can't remember, but
well, he junked whatever his bad pitch was and started throwing a sinker instead.
So, I mean, I don't think McHugh is as bad as some of the older peripherals are going to make him out to be, but I think in today's matchup, I don't think I want any part of him. So, he's...
No, you don't want him in this matchup either, but someone in the chat earlier requested that we talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, where are you at with McHugh?
I'm at the point where, like, I think the Astros pitching coach has some wizardry behind him.
He's a genius.
Like, I just based on what has happened with Keuchel and McHugh this year, I convinced Mike to put a bid in on Peacock, and we added Peacock in NFBC just because, Peacock's had a couple of decent starts in a row, and I'm just starting to believe that, I mean, if they can turn McHugh looked terrible as, like, both minor league and major league career before this year, and now he looks unbelievable. So I'm kind of buying. I was in on Keuchel early. I was a big doubter of McHugh, but this has been an extended run. It looks pretty legit.
I stacked against McHugh twice, and it was one of those situations where I looked at the stuff and I said, "This is not an Eric Bedard situation. This is probably a situation where I'm best not targeting this pitcher continually." The one other guy that I wanted to talk about was Jordan Zimmermann because I think a lot of other sort of daily fantasy players basically have probably been burned by him a couple times. So, Jordan Zimmermann, explain why he is your number 4 starting pitcher tonight, Drew.
I mean, I look at his peripherals, and the only negative that I can really come up with is he's allowing, a line drive rate that is 2 percentage points higher than his career average. And, that's a stat that has a decent bit of fluctuation to it because there's a bit of subjectivity. So I'm not, and then you look at the other stuff and like K rate's actually, in line. His swinging strike percentage is up. Walk rate's fine. Ground ball rate's fine. So like, I think it's just fluky, and so I see some of the price points around the industry at like a 20% discount over where you would have gotten him a month ago. And he's not a guy that has extreme splits in terms of what he allows. Like he allows like a 305 weighted on base average to lefties and like a 296 to righties. So the fact that the Phillies are lefty heavy doesn't really bother me. The Phillies are going into a slightly tougher hitting environment than they're accustomed to. And, I don't think it's a bad matchup for him. So he's a 20% discount from where he's usually priced. Matchup's not bad. I'll be all over that on multi-starting pitcher sites.
I'm pretty much completely in line with Drew there. I think for the price, I mean, there's just not a lot to really, it seems like not a lot to really worry about with Zimmermann. The matchup's decent. The price is great. So he's definitely in play tonight.
Do you guys not understand that the lifeblood of this show is you two not getting along?
Well, I could quibble with the Philadelphia lefty thing doesn't matter because even if Zimmerman's splits are a little closer to neutral than most right-handed pitchers are, the Phillies still have some left-handed bats that have extreme splits. Like Ryan Howard has an extreme platoon split. So even if Zimmermann is completely neutral, which he's not, Howard's still getting a big advantage just because. But again, that's quibbling just for the sake of it.
I mean, my thing when I look at starting pitchers, especially value ones, like Garrett Cole, I'm like, whatever. If Carlos Quentin's gonna dong off him, it's gonna happen. But when I'm trying to make a choice in between guys, I'm looking at the best hitters in the other guys' lineup, and sort of the question you have to ask is, I guess, does Chase Utley scare you more than Anthony Rizzo? Because the other guy that I'm looking at tonight is Zach Wheeler. And I think it would depend on the way in which you view baseball and how you react to new information. My take on it would be I'm honestly more afraid of Anthony Rizzo. than I am of Chase Utley or Ryan Howard at this point. So I think I am more likely to take Zimmerman, especially because he's $2,000 cheaper on Draft Street.
Yeah, I would take Zimmerman before Wheeler tonight.
Yeah, the other thing for me is like I don't look at it as just one person in the lineup because if you're an experienced pitcher, you can kind of work around that one spot. But like 6 left-handed bats for Wheeler, who has shown really big splits, especially in terms of his command against left-handed bats, that just worries me. And for a guy who relies on strikeouts, if he has command issues, you're talking about him maybe going, maybe working into the 6th, maybe 5+. His pitch count's going to get run up. So against 6 left-handed bats, that worries me in terms of how deep he can go into that game.
The thing with Wheeler, if you watch him the last couple games, I mean, he's definitely, command is a big concern with him. He's had a lot of trouble with it in the past, but the last couple games, he's looked pretty good in terms of commanding his stuff, especially his off-speed stuff, which he's kind of struggled with in the past.
Yeah, and he's a young pitcher, so like it's hard to place so much emphasis on what he's done because he's constantly growing, and the sample you're dealing with is already sort of small. But that's just another thing for me that worries. I'd rather if he was facing a righty-heavy lineup, I'd be much more excited about deploying him.
Okay, cool. I think that's probably about enough discussion on pitchers for today. A lot of it, you got to trust yourself tonight, guys. That's what you have to do with your pitching selections. It's the obvious move to make.
The other guy I'll throw out there because I know Derek desperately wants to throw him out there because
damn it, you're gonna beat me to it.
Is who Derek wants to throw out. So my guy Chris Archer, 7 right-handed bats in the Marlins lineup.
Actually, not the guy I was going to go
really
for.
Nice spot.
Yeah, I like Archer. The guy I wanted to throw out, though, as like a GPP option, like high upside guy, is Jake Arrieta. I like Arrieta's stuff a lot. I think he's in a really good matchup tonight. He's sort of starting to turn his stuff into, numbers that look good this year. So I like Arrieta a lot tonight.
I agree with Derek. I actually picked him up to stream him in my seasonal league, and I like his price tag on Draft Street as well. But, I mean, basically with Archer, you're asking yourself, is he going to be able to get through the lineup twice relatively efficiently? Because he's a 2-pitch guy, he sometimes has trouble doing that. So, for whatever that's worth.
I think you're confusing Archer and Odorizzi.
Am I? Well, I know Odorizzi has definite problems, but Archer is a 2-pitch guy. Don't tell me that's right.
Yeah. No, he is, but like he doesn't have the same issues turning over the lineup as Odorizzi. Odorizzi's had really big problems early in his career, the second and third time through. Archer hasn't really had that.
Well, whatever, Drew. That's just like your opinion, man. In general, though, is that not a problem with 2-pitch pitchers?
No, it can be, but I mean, his 2 pitches against right-handed bats is pretty. I mean, those are the 2 pitches you want to have: fastball and slider.
All right, cool, Drew.
It depends on, I think, what the 2 pitches are and how the other lineup is composed. Because, it matters.
Cool, guys. Cool. No, I'm just teasing. Okay, cool. Let's talk about hitters. I'm gonna give Drew Arizona, and I'm gonna give you Colorado. Derek. So I'll let Drew go first and talk about Arizona and his favorite manager.
Oh no, I wanted Arizona.
Okay,
fine.
Do you want?
No,
Let Derek talk about Arizona.
Yeah,
no,
you can have
for it.
Arizona. No, Derek, it's you. You asked for it. You got it.
All right. You know what? I want to see Drew's rant though because I feel like he has more problems with this Arizona lineup than I do. I actually kind of don't have much of a problem with it. I like it. So let's let Drew rant. I
don't know who the F Nick Evans is. And like, there's two guys. I feel like I know a lot about baseball. There's 2 guys in lineups today that I don't know who they are, and one is Nick Evans. The other is this Alex Hassan guy for Boston. I don't know who that is.
He played on Sunday.
What?
He played on Sunday.
Did he?
Yep.
I was doing this on Sunday.
And he was not on any site because I wanted to use him hoping he was at the Min.
False. He was on DraftKings. I played him. He was 2.2.
Well, then shit.
Is this the same Nick Evans that was like the old like super like D-list Mets prospect?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm talking about Hassan though.
I think so, yeah. So, I mean, the Goldschmidt thing is just kind of laughable to me because of all the spots to pick to rest Goldschmidt, to give him a day. I just don't understand this one at all. But so that's obviously really frustrating for daily fantasy players. And then I just don't get hitting Parra leadoff against a lefty especially a lefty who is so dominant against left-handed bats. Like De La Rosa is really, really tough on lefties. And so now you're putting 2 of your first 4 hitters as left-handers. It screws up the dynamics of trying to put together rallies early. One of my most frustrating things about managers is they get so strung up with going like left, right, left. They're playing for a defensive. They're playing for a defensive tactic in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, and ignoring the best way to score runs in the 1st through 6th innings. And so that's the thing that annoys me most about Parra leading off. Is just that's not your most effective way, to throw a sub 310 on base percentage guy against left-handed pitching out there. So that's my primary beef. Is just it's a lineup construction issue that Kirk Gibson historically has, and going 2 lefties in the first 4 spots against De La Rosa is just going to halt a lot of rallies. Like, I like Hill, Prado, and Ross a lot, but those are 2 outs sandwiched around them most of the game, and that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I would agree with that there. De La Rosa just has crazy splits, so Parra and Montero were completely off the table tonight. But Hill, Montero, and Ross, even though
I don't agree
ideal,
with you that Montero's completely off the table on Draft Street. He's basically a punt there. He's 3.7, so you're basically hoping they get to the bullpen. You're hoping they get to the bullpen, but I would absolutely.
Cheap, then yeah.
Yeah, but you're hoping to get to the bullpen, and they're less likely to get to the bullpen with this lineup early. Is the other part of that problem?
Just for that tag though, like he's a 3-hole hitter in cores. Like how often you get a 3-hole hitter in cores for 3.7? Like 10 times a year, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, De La Rosa's really good on lefties.
Yeah, with Nolan Arenado at third base, he is.
Oh, yeah.
Lefties don't get the ball to third base very often.
But what if he did, though? That's what I'm at. Like, what about a world where that did happen? No, I just wanted to point that out because that price tag jumped out to me, and I wanted some confirmation from you guys that it was okay to roster him, and you guys didn't give me the positive affirmation that I needed.
I think it would have been if Goldschmidt was in the lineup and they had a bunch of righties around him that you could see. You could see, one, him getting a lot of favorable situations in terms of runners on base and different things that just putting the ball in play can result in points. And 2, a higher likelihood of getting to the bullpen early. But this lineup, Hill, Prado, and Ross are going to have to do a whole lot of power damage to get, or there's going to have to be some bloops or bleeders or something to get De La Rosa out of this game really early.
BABIP, man. BABIP is such an asshole. Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about Colorado, though, because they're actually the team that... Now, not at the beginning of the day, but once we saw the line moves, Colorado became the team that you actually want more exposure to. A couple things... Well, actually, no, Derek, the floor is yours to talk about Colorado.
Chase Anderson he was pretty much a non-prospect. He wasn't a guy anyone was looking at when he got called up. He's made 3 starts, and he's been terrible, especially in terms of giving up tons and tons of fly balls, which just doesn't fly in Coors Field. Obviously roster construction, I know we were talking before the show a little bit. You have problems with Kadire in the 2 spot, and obviously that's far from ideal. But there are definitely some good Colorado bats that you're going to want to be targeting tonight in Coors against Anderson, Blackman, Morneau, Cargo.
My problem is that he's playing instead of Dickerson, which is just super counterintuitive. Like, Dickerson mashes when they put him in the lineup, and it's weird to me that they're playing Charlie Culberson at third base instead of Kadire when they use Kadire at third base in an American League park.
I don't have a problem with Kadire over Dickerson if it's just like a straight 1-for-1 thing, but if you can put Kadire at third like they have and then put Dickerson in the lineup, then I think you do it. But I think Kadire is, even without the platoon advantage, is probably a better hitter than Dickerson is.
Yeah. Okay. And the one note, I'm sure we're going to talk about these players a bunch, but before we get started and talk about catchers, the one note I wanted to make on Morneau is that his price tag is super diminished compared to basically his expected value because he's hitting at the 3-hole and he's priced like a 6-hole hitter. So, all right, cool. Let's talk about catchers. Give me a non-Miguel Montero, Willen Rosario catcher, Drew.
Catcher was my most difficult position to try to assess today. Basically, in our model, Willen Rosario ranks a little bit ahead of the field, and he sucks versus righties historically. But it's just the Colorado total is pushing him really high, and Chase Anderson has some weird reverse splits not only in the really small sample this year at the major league level, but in AAA last year, he allowed like an 870 OPS to right-handed bats. So it was hard kind of pegging Anderson as a normal guy when I was looking at some of his minor league results. So Rosario, plus the bullpen effect, he kind of stood out above everybody else. And then there was like expensive guys in either tough pitching matchups but good park environments, or good pitching matchups but no platoon advantage, like the Buster Posey, Jonathan Lucroy, who's now not in the lineup, Evan Gaddis. And then there's like the cheap guys, or there's like the platoon advantage guys in low scoring environments like Salvador Perez. So like catcher was just kind of a disaster for me. I'll probably end up with Rosario.
Gross. I think I'm taking Montero on Draft Street and then Rosario elsewhere. Who would be your preference out of those two? I'm assuming Rosario, Derek.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna take Hundley versus Saunders, but he's not in the lineup.
Hundley would have been a good play. I'm looking at, I think Wilson Ramos is a solid play tonight. Buchanan's not a good pitcher. He doesn't have the platoon advantage. And Zimmerman coming back has bumped him to the sixth spot. But I think Ramos is a good play. I think your boy John Jaso is actually a solid play tonight, even though Kuroda is a good pitcher. He's going to have the platoon advantage. He's getting a big park boost.
That's who I wanted to play until I found out that the game probably wasn't going to happen.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, I would love to take Jaso tonight. I actually am not as high on Kuroda as it seems almost everyone else is. I'm not afraid to take a hitter in a good spot against him. Yeah, I'm good on catcher. We don't need to talk that much about it. I think second base and shortstop is a more interesting conversation because there are some super intriguing options. Basically, Dustin Pedroia is in a really good spot, but he's sort of just been... Maybe it's just my perception that he hasn't been great this year, or he hasn't been great when I took him. So who do you prefer out of those two, Drew?
The two being Pedroia and Hill, I assume?
Yeah.
So I missed some stuff this weekend because I was away. I guess Pedroia missed a game and then left another game early because of the hand issue. So that's a concern, and that's enough to probably push it closer to a tiebreaker. If they're both fully healthy, even with the differences in park and pitchers and everything, we have Pedroia higher than Hill. But pricing, around the industry is very different. So on Draft Street, Hill's way cheaper. On FanDuel, Pedroia is a little bit cheaper. Those are the two guys I'm kind of honing in on. If I was going to spend big, I might spend on Cano ahead of those two guys just because Floyd's had some problems with lefties. But I'm more locked into Pedroia and Hill across, and I'm kind of letting price dictate for me so I get exposure to both of them.
Yeah, I like both of them tonight. I have Hill a hair higher than Pedroia, especially batting second in the lineup tonight and not his usual sixth or whatever. I think Hill's a really good play. Big park boost, platoon advantage against an extreme platoon split guy in De La Rosa. I'll take Hill, especially with Pedroia's hand stuff going on.
Yeah, I think that conversation sort of ends there for me as well. And then it's worth mentioning, I always like D. Gordon as a tournament option, basically no matter what. Leone G chatted me the other day and said, what if I just play D. Gordon at second base every day for the rest of the year? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, you might end up ahead in that scenario. You really honestly might, just because he's sort of unpredictable, but when he gets ahead, he's gonna score a lot of fantasy points. So I just wanted to mention him as well.
I want to throw out too Scooter Janae, who is still dirt cheap and is in a really good spot tonight.
Yeah, he's hitting second too.
I mean, if you want to go cheaper at second base, he's your guy. Jonathan Scope maybe is another decent punt type, but I like Janae a little bit better.
Yep, I agree.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Let's talk about shortstop. Can I pay up for Xander Bogaerts and feel all right about it, Drew?
Yeah, I think Bogart. We've been touting Bogaerts all season long against left-handed pitching. Even in small sample sizes, his peripherals looked great. He's got a walk per K ratio over 1. He's got a huge line drive rate. He's got decent power for a shortstop, like a 150 ISO, which is fine. And now that he's been hitting second consistently, he's hitting ahead of a bunch of guys who hit left-handed pitching really well in the Red Sox lineup as well. So going up against TJ House, I like him. I don't mind the price increase, with the exception of, I think it was FanDuel. He's close enough to Tulowitzki that I just would pay for Tulowitzki. But on most of the other sites where there's a big gap, I still am fine with deploying Bogarts.
Are you on the same line of thought, Derek?
I definitely think Bogarts is okay, but I think Chris Owings, I like a little bit better than Bogarts tonight, even batting, whatever he's batting, like 6th or 7th. I think he's a great play tonight.
Isn't he just bad, though? Like, doesn't he have, like, a sub-310 weighted on-base average?
Yeah. You know what, actually, I just reran it. Yeah, I like Bogarts. I like Bogarts more tonight. I think Owings is still a good play, but I like Bogarts more. I think J.J. Hardy is a solid option tonight. I'm just not buying this whole Joe Saunders is better now thing because I don't think he is. He's playing in a good park with the platoon advantage against a really bad pitcher. So I think, and he's still pretty cheap on a lot of sites.
Velo for life, dude. Adding 2 miles of velocity is like changed Joe Saunders entirely, man. he shut out the Twins over 6 innings, so it means he's a Cy Young candidate.
And like, I kind of brought that up. I wasn't on the show the last time, but I brought that up with Tuttle, who was on the show that morning, just about how like I thought it was something that had gone underreported that people hadn't noticed, and it was something that would be enough to like get me off of stacking the Twins. That had less to do with the velocity and more to do with the fact that the Twins, I want like everything to line up for me to really go all in on them. I'd be much more confident in Texas deploying an Orioles lineup, stack or mini stack against Saunders than I would the Twins. So like any reservations I had about the velocity bump for Saunders kind of go past the wayside with this Orioles lineup.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm looking to play Hardy most spots. That's sort of the guy that I like just because I do think he does have that power potential versus Saunders. And Bogarts is just too expensive. If I was punting, I would probably take Culberson for the minimum on Draft Street, but Hardy is close enough to the min on FanDuel that I don't think that's a decision that you have to make. First base.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm kind of landing on Hardy or Tulo on most sites, but I don't mind Bogarts.
Yeah, I think Tulo obviously is, way above anyone else tonight, so if you can fit him in there, go for it.
All right, cool. Damn it, I keep saying that. I gotta stop. I gotta get a new seg. Gotta get a new transition. Something. Gotta come up with something. First base. So, Goldschmidt's not in the lineup, which is, probably one of the 5 most annoying things that's happened to me over the last 6 months. Like, if I had to really categorize it, that would really be up there. So I'm gonna just downgrade and take a first baseman from the same game. I'm just taking Morneau. Like, that's just the choice that I'm making. I wanted a first base in that game with the platoon advantage. I can get one for $1,000 cheaper in the 3-hole. What way are you going, Derek?
I was going Goldschmidt until he wasn't in the lineup. Then I was looking at Brandon Moss, who I think's in a great spot, but weather. So I think Morneau is probably the next option, unless you just want to spend up on like Miggy, who's in a solid, an okay spot.
Drew?
Yeah, I have like Morneau and Adrian Gonzalez like right next to each other in our model. Now, some of that was assuming Morneau wasn't going to hit third, so that probably gives Morneau the boost. The only thing I'm running into is whether using Morneau, if I want to use him as one of my, however many Rockies I'm allotted on a site, or if I want to use other Rockies to get him in. So, like, I'm kind of debating between those two on most of the sites is what I'm looking at now.
I'd throw Freddie Freeman in the conversation, too. I don't think Erasmo is a very good pitcher. He's playing at home. He's got the platoon advantage.
Thank God somebody
he's not ridiculously expensive.
No, I'm on board. I'm on board with you, Drew.
Thank God
he's
somebody
not
else
good.
doesn't think Erasmo's good. Like the season-long crowd has been sucking off Erasmo for 2 years.
Whoa!
And the guy had no fastball.
It's extreme, but
it's
it's
straight as
true.
hell. He's got a good changeup. That's all he's got. Everything else sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know they sent him down to pitch at single A for like 3 starts this year? Like, they clearly don't think much of that guy. Like, I definitely think Freddie Freeman is a fine play tonight. I don't think very highly of Erasmo either. Third base. Without an all right. Cool. I don't even know how to seg without saying it. It's like
now it's just awkward, Davis. Jeez.
Yeah, now it's just uncomfortable. So I can understand someone not wanting to pay 3.7 for Martin Prado. I can understand that, or 3.5 on FanDuel, but I don't see any other third baseman other than Manny Machado who I even want to play. So tell me why I shouldn't pay up for Prado, Derek.
Well, how much is Ryan Zimmerman tonight? He's back in the lineup. He's batting fifth. I like the matchup. Is he cheap because he's
He is
coming off the IL?
$100 more expensive on FanDuel than Prado.
Well, then ignore that because I like Prado better. I think Prado and Machado are my top two guys tonight. I think they both look really good. I don't have a problem if you want to go cheaper. You want to go Matt Dominguez. He's at home. He's got the platoon advantage against C.J. Wilson. It's a very righty-heavy lineup. I mean, we were talking about how Wilson might be able to navigate it just because of the way he pitches. But still, I mean, there's a chance that game gets out of control. Dominguez puts up some counting stats.
Yeah. Cool. I hate myself right now. Machado or Prado, Drew?
I think where there's a big price gap, I'm fine with that. The thing with Prado for me on FanDuel is he's like right there with Beltre, and
That's right. You love Beltre.
so like I don't.
Yeah, Beltre's in the mix too, but
So like for 200 more, I'd rather have Beltre than Prado personally. Especially now that the Arizona lineup is a little bit watered down without Goldschmidt to kind of help rise all boats. So I'd probably go with Machado or Beltre on FanDuel. On other sites where Prado and Machado are similar, I like Prado greater than Machado.
I think it's kind of a toss-up. I'd take whoever's cheaper of those two.
I think I'm gonna go Prado on FanDuel and hope that most people are thinking the way you guys are in terms of price and valuation, because you can still construct a lineup that you like. Actually, I hate all my lineups ever since Goldschmidt went out. I was really in love with the one before, so maybe I will go down to Machado. But I want to play Prado just because I do think that there is still some like recovery from injury stuff going on with Machado. Before he hit that grand slam the other day, his weighted on base average was like, I don't remember. I heard a stat the other day, but it was really bad. Not saying that his skills have eroded, but basically just that returning from an ACL injury is hard no matter who you are. So it's really that simple for me. There's a reason he's 2.7 is basically what I'm saying. But you guys are probably right, and he'll probably hit 3 doubles tonight, and Prado will go 0 for 4 and K twice, and that's just the existence that I live.
I mean, I think Machado's been overrated for a while as a hitter because he's such a great defender, and he's so young, and he's going to be so great, but he's not really a great hitter yet. But you're not paying a price on most sites of a great hitter. So, I really like the price point you're getting on him tonight.
If anyone ever brings up David Ortiz skill erosion to me again, I'm gonna freak out. You know what? Blackman's gonna hit like 9 home runs in this series, and you're gonna be so sad you made this bet, Drew.
There's pretty much nothing Blackman could do in this series that would make me sad that I made this bet.
If he hit 9 home runs, you would probably start to think that maybe you were on the bad side.
Nope.
If he hit 9 home runs, he would at least catch up to Ortiz.
It's still June 3rd. I'd still have 3+ months.
Well, I'm just saying 9 home runs would help me out. So come on, Charlie Blackman, please. I don't want to read Drew the book as he tries to sleep in San Francisco.
That's what's happening. Bedtime stories with Davis Maddox.
This is terrible. Let's have a conversation about outfield, because I think there are a lot of different directions to go, as there always are. There are always decisions you have to make with outfield. It got a little bit easier when Dickerson wasn't in the lineup, because then you're basically limited, in my opinion, to 2 Colorado outfielders. I don't want to, when there are so many options, I don't want to take someone like Kadire, who doesn't have the platoon advantage, regardless of Anderson's weighted on base average splits. I still think that taking a hitter who doesn't have the platoon is not a super great idea, especially when you're not receiving a discount. So if you had to create a reasonably an outfield on FanDuel that you could construct and it wouldn't hinder your ability to take one of the pitchers you liked and still get in Morneau and Hill, what would your outfield be, Derek?
Wow, okay, let me take a look at this. I think in that lineup is definitely going to have to be Adam Jones because he's reasonably priced and he's in a great lineup or a great spot tonight. I think crap. Come back to me. Finding like.
Okay, that was a lot.
Okay,
That was a lot
I'm
to
gonna
throw
put,
at you.
I'm gonna put Cody Ross in there. How cheap is he?
He's the
2200.
absolute minimum.
2200. Yeah. So then I'm gonna go with a bigger guy. I'll go with like.
No, which sounds great. It sounds great, but it makes constructing the rest of your lineup more difficult, actually, because it causes. No, it does. For me, it's causing problems right now.
Then don't play him. If it's causing problems, don't play him.
Well, it's because I want to play Nelson Cruz.
How is it causing problems to have the cheapest outfielder possible if you want to play the most expensive outfielder possible? I don't understand that theory.
Okay,
I
because
think if you
basically, go ahead.
Gomes, Ross, and Blackman. I think you're not spending on a per position on like a per spot level. You're not spending that much. I think that's a reasonable outfield.
And Cargo is even cheaper than Blackman,
Yeah, he is.
which
I'd
is
be
nuts.
fine with him too. Yeah.
The way in which it's causing problems, Drew, is that the lineup that I like is $100 short of Rosario, so that with Cruz in it. So I'm having troubles over here. I do think I think you have to play Ross for 2.2, hitting fifth versus De La Rosa.
You absolutely have to.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think you can get off of that. So
Here's the only reason I could say that you can fade it is because Cody had that off-season hip surgery, and he hasn't hit for much power. That's the only that I'm on the Cody Ross train. He will probably be in every one of my lineups, but I'm just saying, like, I think that's the other side of that coin. That if you wanted to have a reason not to,
yeah,
Delman Young's also there at 2200 too.
get Delman Young out of my face.
Where's Delman Young batting tonight?
Seven.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he's still Delman Young, but I mean,
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So like, there's so many. But here's the thing: there's so many cheap outfielders on FanDuel. Like just rolling through. Like Jay Bruce, Andre Ethier, and Johnny Gomes are all 3K.
What about Calhoun leading off versus McHugh? That was someone who.
I'm not going near Cy McHugh. In Calhoun.
I can see doing it, but McHugh isn't a guy I particularly want to pick on. I mean, Calhoun is in a good spot. He's got platoon. He's getting the park boost. He's leading off. So I can see picking him. What is going on in the background right now? Is there like a...
It's not you. It's Davis.
Okay.
It's not me.
Oh, it is you.
What did I do?
I'm getting like a reverb effect going on.
Yeah,
with
this
people
is
talking.
Kitchen tagged you with a fun little thing, and now it's reverbing.
Yeah, what we're talking about is the echo that I think is Drew's fault because he still doesn't have a headset.
No, I don't think so. Because
it's just when you do the overlays that some weird stuff happens for us, basically.
no, it was doing it before. It basically happens. I think it's Cardi's microphone, maybe, because it's done it a few times before.
Oh, maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Let me throw this question at both of you. Would you pay up? Do you think Nelson Cruz is worth his price tag tonight on FanDuel? I think elsewhere it's too hard to do, but on FanDuel, would you do it?
I think it's justifiable. It's not something where I'm plugging him in and then trying to work around him. But if I end up putting, like a JJ Hardy or a Chris Owings, punting at shortstop, and then I have extra money because I'm not spending a lot of pitcher, I go with like Garrett Cole for 8,100 or like, whoever, Dan Herron for 76, and I have the money, I'm going to put Cruz in there, but it's not like it's something I have to do.
Drew, would you pay for Nelson Cruz? Would he be someone you would actively try and get in your lineup, or would you end up there?
I tend to always be the guy who is the latter. I tend to end up with the most expensive guys instead of trying to actively fit them, especially with FanDuel where there's so many different combinations you can play because the pricing is kind of so soft. So I would say this, like he's the number 2 hitter in our model. Now that Goldschmidt's out, he's in probably the best situation you'll get him in all season. So I do not mind the price point. The thing that is prohibiting me is the fact that there's a couple Rockies outfielders like 1,400 cheaper than him. It's just hard for me to ignore the added expected value I can get in my lineup by downgrading slightly.
Would you take Blackman or Cargo, Derek?
I would take. Oh wow, I think I would take. I'd take Cargo.
I already know what Drew's gonna say.
I mean, I wish he was batting better than fifth, but I would take Cargo.
Yeah,
Why would explain that to me?
Me?
Yeah, I already knew your answer.
I think Cargo is just a better hitter overall. Now, there's a couple contextual factors that can push it closer that I'd understand the decision. One being the fact that Blackman's hitting first and Cargo's hitting fifth. The second being the fact that Cargo is a little bit banged up right now. And so if you want to just avoid any potential risk of a player leaving the game early, that's the other thing that gets a little screwy with Dickerson not in the lineup, is there's an easy plug-in if something does happen with Cargo, if, he's just not feeling great. So, there's a couple contextual factors, but I tend to just lean on the fact that I believe Cargo is a much, much superior hitter to Blackman.
You're superior to Blackman.
I can assure you, Drew is not superior to Blackman as a daily fantasy play tonight.
Because Blackman is the best hitter in the history of baseball. He's going to have a 900 weighted on base average. He's going to need to be. Oh, I hate myself. Guaranteed dong time. I'll let Drew go first with his obvious one, then Derek with his obvious one, then we'll do under the radar. So go, Drew.
Obvious is Nelson Cruz, and which sucks because I don't have him in a lineup right now. And under the radar, I will go with I'll go with Cody. I do believe he still has power left in that bat, so I think he goes deep tonight.
Derek?
Okay, I'll go with... Shit. Give me 1 second. I'll go with... Let's see. Okay, fuck it.
Derek Carty for the win.
Okay. Obvious, I'll go... you know what? I'll throw you a bone, Davis. I'll go Blackman.
Swag.
Under the radar, I'll go... I don't know, does Adam Jones count? Or Cody Ross?
No, but we didn't talk about Adam Jones at all. I think he makes an excellent
I mentioned him
play.
as part of my FanDuel lineup that I would put in there, my reasonable FanDuel outfield. I like Adam Jones a lot.
He also has a super reasonable price tag on Draft Street.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the same spot as Cruz, except he isn't as scorching hot, and, he's still a really good player.
Cruz is somehow taking drugs still, right? Like, he's definitely still on steroids. My guaranteed dong is Morneau, and my under the radar is JJ Hardy. I think he breaks the streak tonight. I think it happens versus, if it's gonna happen versus the likes of a pitcher like Joe Saunders, right?
Yeah,
gotta be.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna regret this. Drew, who are you gonna regret playing or regret fading tonight?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't have Nelson Cruz in lineups right now, and I just named him as the guaranteed dong of the night. So I'm gonna regret that.
Yeah, you are. I think I just made room for him in the FanDuel lineup. That's happening. Derek?
I think I'm on it too. I'm not gonna have Cruz anywhere, and I'm gonna regret it because he's in an awesome spot tonight.
Carlos Gonzalez just got so lucky. I needed $100 more to get JJ Hardy in my lineup, and the difference between Blackman and Cargo was 100. He should thank himself.
That's another one that, on the regret playing, I'm gonna have way too much Carlos Gonzalez for my own good, given his price tag everywhere.
Given his
bad
fatinitis.
Limps out in the second inning, I'm not gonna be a happy camper.
You are so lucky that Steve's not on this show.
You know Carlos Gonzalez is gonna get hit by a pitch in his thigh in the third inning, and it's done for the night. That's happening. My regret for the night, I think, is going to be one of the Rockies or Diamondbacks is gonna suck. They're just gonna K a lot. BABIP is gonna have their way with them, and I'm all in on those two teams. The only hitters that I have players. The only other team that I have hitters from is Baltimore. So I have a feeling that one of those teams is gonna probably the Diamondbacks because George of the Roses is such a good ground ball pitcher. Let's pull up this elite draft, David.
Yeah, our buddy Mark, he's already qualified for the DraftKings event. He says that Gaddis is his dong of the night.
That's who I just moved in to be my catcher on FanDuel because Erasmo is not good.
Well, get out of town. All right, well, this is the draft that we have, and it looks like, surprise, surprise, you're going with your boy Charlie Blackmon and Cargo. You didn't go with any pitchers, did you? No, you went with Chase Anderson.
I missed out on Colin Herron, and I basically hated all the other pitchers. So I was like, whatever, I'll just take a -5 from Chase Anderson, or hope that he gets pulled really early.
Yeah, so you went with all power. You went with Blackmon, Cargo, Hanram, Abreu, Rosario, and then old Chase Anderson.
Yeah, that Abreu price tag is nice, you guys. If you're playing elite games tonight on that late slate, you need to lock in Abreu for 5K.
Yeah, Garrett Cole. That Garrett Cole team is probably my favorite, I think.
Oh yeah, that team's beating mine by a lot.
Cole, Montero, Prado, Hill, Para, and Puig. So basically, Cole, Arizona Bats, and Puig. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I can vibe with that, is what I should have said.
Can you?
Yeah, I can vibe with that.
All right, good, cool. All right. Yeah. Uh-huh. You guys try and host a show and do an elite draft. It's not easy. Yes, it is. It's super easy.
Yeah, you finished your draft way early, so don't blame that on the all right, cool thing. It's just gonna have to be. What was something that I used to say all the time?
I never listened.
I think. I think it was. Yeah, I agree with that, or something like that. And I was already like looking at the next thing on the list, and I wasn't even listening.
You used to say the Daily Fantasy WNBA show.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've said that and the iStore and everything else. I mean, every single screw up, I've already done it. But yeah. So, have we covered everything? You guys feel good about tonight?
I mean, yeah, the chalk plays are Arizona and Colorado, and if they hit, you're gonna have a nice night. And if they don't hit, you're gonna have a bad time.
I don't think Arizona's ahead of Baltimore on that list.
Oh, I do.
Oh.
Good luck with that.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna get on Bovada right now and bet on Arizona to win the game.
It's their first game in Yankee Stadium. I mean, in Coors. In Coors. So they're gonna be tired because
if that game is in Yankee Stadium, I have some lineup changes to make because that means all of my calculations are wrong.
Still wouldn't be that bad. We should say, I think it was JJ was the one who said that we should do like a recap segment. What did you learn this segment? Because we always learn something. Sometimes it's not. I mean, it ends up not being valuable information, but we learned something. Like we learned today about Davis's favorite words. But just singing bet is what Kyle says.
That's never happening.
Not happening.
I'm never singing. I shouldn't have made that bet because I won't pay it off.
And then some talk about how George of the Roses is good at home, so you shouldn't be targeting him. All I know is that every time I target opposing team at Coors on the first two games, I get screwed. So,
well, what is it? Our buddy Smiz says the first game of the series at Coors, the opposing hitters never do well. I mean, that's completely anecdotal, but that's just
well, yeah, there was because at first there was a stat, and I think maybe one team broke it, but it's like first game in Coors this season, no opposing team has scored more than 3 runs. So some team eventually broke that streak, but very anecdotal, yes. But it was like, unfortunately, something that really hurt people's bankrolls, including myself, because when you're all in on the opposing team 4 or 5 times in a row and doesn't happen, that's 5 losing nights. So it wasn't good. Hopefully tonight will be better. Tomorrow on our Wednesday show, we'll have Davis and Derek, and good old Tut, Mr. Tuttle. So we'll be on the show, and hopefully we'll have some good news to report from tonight's big events. Hopefully that you guys will take that down. We'll be drafting later on tonight.
Everyone unfollow me on Twitter if like the Diamondbacks have scored like 2 runs through like 6 innings. Just no, don't unfollow me. Mute me at least.
Yeah, just do what Tuttle does whenever you get suicidal and just mute.
Yeah.
When you start getting ready to jump off the ledge, instead of reaching out, we just mute you. So probably not the best advice, but it is what it is.
No, I have absolutely no problem with that. Like I'm completely insufferable in base because Drew tweeted this once. Losing in baseball is worse than in any other sport because you lose your money so slowly and painfully.
I can see that.
Well, and it's just like, is there anything worse than watching your like most expensive hitter hack at a ball and hit a ground ball to the shortstop? Like, is there anything worse in daily fantasy sports? Maybe like your running
Josh
back.
Smith jumpers.
You expect that though.
No. When you take Josh Smith and he's taking like 20 footers, it's just as painful as anything else that can happen.
Dude, missed shots are beautiful. I need to teach you.
It is. It is a very baseball is the most frustrating, as far as like you're waiting for your chance and then nothing. So, only advice I have tonight is turn down. Turn up. That's what we want to do, right, Davis?
Get turned.
Yeah, we want to turn up. Turns up. All right, that'll do it. Tomorrow, we'll see you later. Bye.